Hello and welcome back to another lecture. We are going to continue with our Terraform project, and in this lecture we are going to create our Nat Gateway. Before we create our Nat Gateway, first let's look at our reference architecture. According to our reference architecture, in this lecture we are going to create two Nat Gateways, one in the public subnet 1 and the other in the public subnet 2. We are also going to create two route tables. We'll call the first route table private route table 1, and we'll call the second route table private route table 2. We are going to associate private route table 1 to private subnet 1 and private subnet 3 in the first availability zone. And we are going to associate private route table 2 to the private subnet 2 and private subnet 4 in the second availability zone. So that's all we'll be doing in this project to create our Nat Gateway. By designing our architecture this way, we are creating an highly available and fault-tolerant architecture because the private route table 1 would route traffic through this Nat Gateway in the first availability zone, and the private route table 2 would also route traffic through this Nat Gateway for instances in this second availability zone. Like I recommend in the previous lecture, before you create a resource in AWS using Terraform, make sure you know how to create the resource in the management console. And once you know how to create that resource in the management console, you can use the same step to create that resource using Terraform. For this project, I have created a reference file for you. Download the reference file from the description and open it. In the reference file that I call natgatewayreference.tf, I have listed all the steps that we will use to create our Nat Gateway. To explain this reference file, this is the note for the type of resource that this syntax will create. And if you want to find the location of this syntax in the Terraform documentation, you are going to use these notes right here. So that's what these notes are for. And the steps to create our Nat Gateway is we are going to allocate an elastic IP. Then we'll allocate another elastic IP. Since we are creating two Nat Gateways, we need two elastic IPs. Then we are going to create our Nat Gateway in the public subnet 1. We'll create our second Nat Gateway in the public subnet 2. We are going to create our private route table 1. Then we would associate our private subnet 1 and private subnet 3 to this private route table 1. Then we are going to create our private route table 2, and we will associate our private subnet 2 and private subnet 4 to this private route table 2. So that's all we need to do in this lecture. I'm going to go back up. The next thing I want you to do is open your Terraform project file. So there are a couple of ways you can open your project file. You can select it here. In case if this is not showing for you, you can click this. See, if I click that, it hides it. And if I select it again, you'll see it. You can select open folder here, or you can select file and select open folder. Then browse to the location of your Terraform project folder. Mine is on my desktop. It is right here. I'll select it. And in that folder, the folder for my project is this e-commerce website folder. I'll select it. And once you've selected, click select folder. And it is going to open your project folder. I'm going to close this. And you can see all the files we've created so far. One thing I forgot to mention in the last lecture is this Terraform state file. Anytime you create a resource in your environment using Terraform, Terraform is going to create this state file. The state file is how Terraform is able to keep track of the changes going on in your environment. So make sure you don't tamper with them. Don't delete the state file, just leave them as it is. The next thing we are going to do is create the file for our Nat Gateway. So in this space, right click in here and select new file and give your file a name. Call it natgateway.tf. And once you've typed the name, press enter. And we have created our Nat Gateway file, and you can see it here. The next thing I'm going to do is just close the terminal. So now I want you to open the reference file again And we are going to copy all those resources and paste it in here. And I have opened the Nat Gateway reference file. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to copy all this resource, copy everything, right click, copy, come back to your Nat Gateway file and paste it in there. So I'll right click and select paste. And if you scroll up, you'll see everything here. Now we can close our Nat Gateway reference file because we don't need it anymore. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to start filling in the value for our resource arguments. The first resource we are going to create is we are going to allocate an elastic IP address. And here you can see the resource type. Terraform provides this for you. And here is the local name. This local name is something I made up. You can call it anything you want. And if you want to see where this syntax comes from in the Terraform documentation, copy this. So I'll copy this. And if you open Google and paste it in there, press enter. I'm going to select the first one. And it is going to take you to the exact location of that syntax in the Terraform documentation. And this is where that syntax is. I'm going to minimize this. For the first argument, it is asking if we are putting this elastic IP in a VPC. It is true, so we are going to type true in here. The next argument we are going to enter is the tag. We are going to give it a name and we are going to call it EIP1. So in double quotes, type EIP1. You can either give it the same tag name or you can call it any tag name you want. So that's all we need to do to allocate our first elastic IP address. The next resource we are going to create is we are going to allocate our second elastic IP address. Again, we are going to do the same. So for VPC, we are going to type true. And for the tags, we are going to give it a name and we are going to call it EIP2. So in double quotes, type EIP2. The next resource we are going to create is our Nat Gateway in public subnet 1. So again, this is the resource type. Terraform provides this. And this is a local name. This is the name I made up. The first argument we are going to enter is the allocation ID. And the allocation ID is the ID of our elastic IP address. So for our Nat Gateway 1, remember our Nat Gateway 1 is in the public subnet 1. So we are going to allocate the first elastic IP address to this Nat Gateway. So under allocation ID, remember how we create the value for ID. What we are going to do is come back up. You can copy this resource type and local name, copy them. And I'm going to come down here. Under the allocation ID, I'll paste it there. And remove the quotes. Add a period between them. And come all the way to the end. Add a period. And type ID. And this is all we need to do to enter the ID of the first elastic IP address. The next argument is our subnet ID. And this is the ID of the subnet that we are putting our Nat Gateway in. Remember, we are putting our Nat Gateway in the public subnet 1. So under this argument, we want to enter the ID of our public subnet 1 here. Our subnet 1 is in our VPC file. So I'll select the VPC file. And if I scroll down, you can see my public subnet 1 here. And under the public subnet 1 resource, copy the resource type and the local name. I'll copy it. Then come back to your Nat Gateway file. Paste it here. And again, remove the double quotes. Add a period between them. Go all the way to the end. Add another period and type ID. And press enter. And that is all we need to do. The next argument we need to enter is the tags. So we are going to give it a name and we are going to call it Nat Gateway Public Subnet 1. So first, start with double quotes and type Nat Gateway Public Subnet 1, or you can give it any tag you want. The next resource we are going to create is our Nat Gateway in the public subnet 2. And to create our Nat Gateway in the public subnet 2, the steps is similar to what we did up here. And for our allocation ID, this time we want to allocate the second elastic IP. So I'm going to go back up. This is the second elastic IP. I'm going to copy the resource type and the local name. Copy it. Then come back down. Paste it here. Remove the double quotes. And go all the way to the end. Add another period and type ID. And for the subnet ID, according to our reference architecture, we want to put this Nat Gateway in public subnet 2. So what we will do is come back to your VPC file and let's go to the resource for public subnet 2. Copy the resource type and the local name. I'll copy it. Then come back to your Nat Gateway file. We are going to paste it there. Remove the double quotes here. Add a period. Then go all the way to the end. Add another period and type ID. And that's all we need to do here. Next, we are going to enter our tags. We are going to give it a name and we are going to call it Nat Gateway Public Subnet 2. So in double quotes, type Nat Gateway Public Subnet 2. And I'm going to scroll down. The next resource we are going to create is our private route table 1, and we are going to add a route to it through the Nat Gateway. You can see the resource type here, and you can see the local name I created. The first argument we are going to enter is our VPC ID, and if we go to our VPC file, and if I scroll down here, you can see my VPC ID here, so I can just copy this. Copy it and come back to this Nat Gateway and just paste it there because we are putting it in the same VPC. The next argument we are going to enter is the route, and for the route we have our CIDR block. For our CIDR block, remember any traffic going to the internet will be anywhere, and this is how you enter anywhere. You type double quote 0.0.0.0/0. The next argument we are going to enter is our Nat Gateway ID. According to our reference architecture, the private route table 1 will be used to route traffic through the Nat Gateway in the public subnet 1. So this Nat Gateway is our Nat Gateway public subnet 1. So for this Nat Gateway ID, I'm going to go back up. This is my Nat Gateway in the public subnet 1. I'm going to copy the resource type and the local name. Copy. Then come down. Paste it here. And remove the double quotes. Add a period. Go all the way to the end. Remove these quotes. Add another period and type ID. And this is all we need to do to enter the value for this argument. The next argument we are going to enter is our tags. We'll give it a name and we'll call it private route table 1. Once you've entered your tag name, the next resource we are going to create is we are going to associate our private subnet 1 to our private route table 1. So for our subnet ID argument, let's select our VPC file and let's go to our private subnet 1. This is my private subnet 1 resource. I'm going to copy the resource type and the local name and come back to my Nat Gateway file, paste it here. And I'm going to remove the double quotes, add a period, come all the way to the end, add another period, and type ID. And for the next argument, which is our route table ID, we can come up here, copy this resource type and the local name for that private route table 1, copy it and paste it here. We are going to remove this quote between them, add a period, come all the way to the end, add another period, and type ID. And let's do the same thing for the next resource. We are going to associate private subnet 3 with private route table 1. Again, we are going to get our subnet ID. So let's come to our VPC file. This is our private subnet 3 resource right here. I'm going to copy the resource type and the local name. Copy it. Come back to your Nat Gateway file. Paste it there. Remove the double quotes. Add a period. And come all the way to the end. Add another period and type ID. The next argument we are going to enter is our route table ID. So I'm just going to copy this. Copy it and paste it here. And this is because we are associating private subnet 3 and private subnet 1 to our private route table 1 we created up here. The next thing we need to do is create our second private route table. I'm going to scroll down. For the VPC ID, we can copy it up here. So copy this. And we can paste it here. The next argument we are going to enter is our route. For the CIDR block, it is going to be anywhere. So we will type 0.0.0.0/0. And for the Nat Gateway ID, according to our reference architecture, we want to route this traffic through the Nat Gateway in the public subnet 2. So I'm going to go to my Nat Gateway public subnet 2. This is it. I'll copy the resource type and the local name. Copy it. Come back down. Under this argument, paste it there. Remove the double quotes. Add a period. Come all the way to the end. Add another period and type ID. Next, we are going to give it a tag. We'll give it a name and we'll call it private route table 2. And I'm going to scroll down. The next resource we are going to create is we are going to associate our private subnet 2 to this route table. Again, we'll get our subnet ID, come to the VPC. Let's go to our private subnet 2, which is up here. I'll copy the resource type and the local name. Copy it. Come back to your Nat Gateway file. We are going to paste that in here. Remove the double quotes. Add a period. Come all the way to the end. Add another period and type ID. And for the next argument, we are going to enter our route table ID. If I scroll up, this is our private route table 2. So copy the resource type and the local name. Come down and paste it here. We are going to remove the double quotes, period, come all the way to the end, add another period and type ID. And the last resource we are going to create is we are going to associate our private subnet 4 to our private route table 2. Again, we are going to get our subnet ID. Come to your VPC file. Let's go to our private subnet 4. Let's copy it here. Let's come back to our Nat Gateway file. We are going to paste it here. We are going to remove the quote, period, and come all the way to the end, period, and type ID. Press enter. And for the route table ID, we can just copy this, come down here and paste it there. And this is all we need to do to create our Nat Gateway file. What I'll do is I'll scroll up and come to File and select Save All. And once you've saved your file, let's open the terminal. I'll select Terminal and I'll select New Terminal. In the terminal, first we are going to type Terraform plan just to see the plan of how Terraform will build our resources. So type Terraform plan. Once you've typed Terraform plan, press enter. And there you go, you can see the plan. Terraform is going to add 21 new resources. It is not going to change any resource, and it is not going to delete any resource. And if you scroll back up, you'll see all the resources that Terraform will create. It is going to create our VPC. You can see it here. You can see it is going to create our public subnet too. And if you keep scrolling up, you will see all the resources that Terraform will create. I'm just going to go back down. And this time I'm going to type down here, I'm going to type Terraform apply. And once you type Terraform apply, press enter. And again, it is showing us the plan. And it is also asking us, do you want to perform these actions? I'm going to type yes and press enter. And Terraform is now creating the resource in my environment. You can see it is creating the VPC. It is creating the elastic IP for the Nat Gateway. And we are just going to give it some time to finish creating all those resources. And there you go. Terraform has finished creating all the resources in my environment. And you can see it created 21 resources. Let's go to the management console to verify. I'm going to minimize this. And in my management console, I'll select service and come down to networking and content delivery, select VPC. On the VPC dashboard, first let's verify our elastic IP address. So on the left side, I'm going to select elastic IP. And you can see we have two elastic IP, EIP1 and EIP2. This is the tag we gave it. The next thing we need to verify is our Nat Gateway. On the left side, select Nat Gateways. And you can see that we have two Nat Gateways. I'm going to expand this. You can see the tag we gave it, Nat Gateway Public Subnet 1, Nat Gateway Public Subnet 2. And if I select the Nat Gateway here, you can see more information about it down here. You can see that the Nat Gateway is in the test VPC and it is in the public subnet 1. This is the elastic IP we created and it is assigned to this Nat Gateway. If I right click on this elastic IP to open it in a new tab, you can see that it is the EIP1. Let's test the second Nat Gateway. And this Nat Gateway is also in the test VPC and it is in the public subnet 2. Let's right click on the elastic IP, open it in a new tab, go to it, and this one is EIP2. The next thing we need to check is our route table. So on the left side, I'm going to select route tables. And let's filter this by our VPC. So I'll select filter by VPC and select the test VPC. And in the test VPC, you can see that we have 4 route tables. The first route table was created for us by default when we created our VPC, and that is the main route table. We created the public route table when we created our VPC, And in this lecture, we just created the private route table 1 and private route table 2. You can see that for each route table, there are 2 subnets each associated to them. So let's check the private route table 1. And you can see the details here. There are 2 subnets associated to it. This route table is in the test VPC. Now let's look at the routes. And under the routes, you can see the local route. And for the public route, it is routing the traffic through the Nat Gateway. If I right click on this, open it in a new tab, that should be one of our Nat Gateway. I'm going to expand this. You can see it is the Nat Gateway public subnet 1 that we created. Let's go back again. Let's check our subnet association. Remember, this is our private route table 1. And according to our reference architecture, our private route table 1 is associated to private subnet 1 and private subnet 3. So here it is associated to private subnet 1 and private subnet 3. That looks good. Let's check the private route table 2. I'm going to select it. Again, for the details, it is in the VPC. 2 subnets are associated. For the route, it is routing traffic to the internet through the Nat Gateway. Let's right click to see what Nat Gateway that is. And this time you can see that it is the Nat Gateway in the public subnet 2. Okay, let's go back. I'm going to close this. And next, let's review the subnet associations. According to our reference architecture, the private route table 2 is associated to private subnet 2 and private subnet 4. So in here, you can see it is associated to private subnet 4 and private subnet 2. And there you go. We've verified everything in the management console. And this means that we have created our Terraform file correctly. So let's go back to our Terraform file. And once you are in your Terraform file, the next thing we can do is delete all the resources in our environment. In the terminal, this time we are going to type Terraform destroy. And once you type Terraform destroy, press enter. And again, it is going to show you the plan summary. You can see this time it is not going to add any resource. It is not going to change any resource, but it is going to delete 21 resource. And if you scroll up, you will see all the resources that Terraform would delete and you can review them. Then let's just go back down. It is also asking us, do we want to apply it? We are going to type yes and press enter. And Terraform is now deleting all the resources in our environment. We are going to give it some time to finish deleting all the resources. And there you go. Terraform has deleted all the resources in our environment. And you can see the summary here. It has deleted 21 resources. And this is how we create Terraform file for Nat Gateway. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.